DGen Nation fam, what is up? What is happening? It's the DGen Nation podcast. We're coming at you for the Week 15 main slate breakdown here on the TFA, the Fantasy Authority, powered by the Fantasy Authority at FF_authority is where you can find that on Twitter. Ryan Williams here, Ryan Alexander _W, joined by my usual suspects, my co-host, my brethren, the Godfather himself, Mr. Kevin Steele, who has gone away to get water or to get his charger or something like that, or maybe he's tilting Derek Carr being knocked out of the Thursday night game, something like that. But you guys know him. He's the man. Find him on Twitter at FantasyWrath13. And then my boy, Matty Buckets, Matty DFS, Matty Gets Money at Matty DFS is where you can find him on Twitter. Matt Dickinson, how we doing, bro?
I'm good, man. I just tweeted out, I can't believe it's already Week 15. And we're sitting here at the same time watching the rebirth of Marcus Mariota, which is pretty weird. But hey, it's probably one of the more applicable 2020 things we've seen this year. It's been a wild ride, but you know, this slate is a fun one. I'm excited to chop it up with you guys and see where you guys are at. See if maybe you guys can get me off the board a little bit in terms of stacks to load it up, because looking at running back is gross this week. I think there's really only 3 or 4 plays, and I'm not exaggerating either when I say 3 or 4 plays. There's literally only 3 or 4 plays that I'm interested at the running back position. So wow. I'm going to need you guys. Running back. Yeah, I'm going to need you guys to talk to me on some low-owned stacks, and because my running backs are going to be popular, I assume. So.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, man. I mean, this is really a fun slate here. We get back to an 11 gamer as we got the 2 games that are going to be on Saturday. Still your Sunday night game, Monday night game. So you know what we do out here. We're trying to help you guys win money. We're trying to win money ourselves. And so I won't waste any more time. We'll get into it as it's the Week 15 slate. We got episode 94 here, I believe, of the podcast. So inching closer to that 100. Appreciate everybody who's been rocking with us all year and rocking with the Fantasy Authority. Guys, if you're watching this on our YouTube channel or maybe even Periscope or Twitch there, you see in the right-hand corner, we are doing that Allen Robinson giveaway jersey. If you have not been listening the past couple of weeks, if this is your first show, make sure you are a subscriber to the YouTube channel. That giveaway is happening on December 27th. That's 10 days from today. So as we're recording this on the 17th, so definitely make sure you are getting subscribed and getting in on that. All right, Maddie. So we got the Week 15 slate, and like you said, this is kind of an interesting slate because just so many things are going on here. I mean, we got a lot of narratives. You know, I love the narratives to unpack here as people are getting into records and what teams are going to be in the playoffs, what playoff seeding is going to be happening. We got some teams facing each other for the second time. So it really is fun, you know, and we always started at the quarterback position because that's kind of where everything kind of aligns itself, right? And so at the quarterback now position, we got Pat Mahomes, he's on the slate, 7,900. Lamar Jackson in that crazy game against Cleveland, you know, he's probably going to be popular at 7,500. Going against Jacksonville at home. Russell Wilson on the road against Washington. Kyler Murray at home against Philly at 7K. Draftkings, Deshaun Watson in that game against Indy. These two teams just faced each other. He put up 300 and something against them. 6,800. Tannehill going against Detroit. I mean, it's just crazy what we got here. You still got Brady in Atlanta. You got Goff with the Jets, Taysom Hill in that KC game, Phillip Rivers. And then the kid Jalen Hurts at 5,900 priced up this week after he helped a lot of people cash last week. So I'm curious to get into the quarterbacks and see where you guys are heading. For me this week, I think, I mean, it's kind of tough, right? Because, you see the matchup with the Jets there. Okay, so Jared Goff, he's going to catch some steam, but I just never really trust playing Jared Goff in DFS. I feel like the Rams guys are always priced up in these matchups, and it's just a roulette there. I mean, we could talk about the running back position with Cam Akers there at his price tag, and then you're playing Goff, and he's no rushing upside, so you're stacking him with people. But are you paying the price tag on Kupp and Woods, and are you trusting Josh Reynolds or Van Jefferson or the tight ends? I mean, it's just crazy. So I really can't go there. So I think for myself, I'm looking for the games that really stand out on paper. And for me, it is the KC New Orleans game, and it is the Philly and Arizona game. We'll talk about it at the running back position, but I guess Tannehill is in play for me because will be making teams that have Derrick Henry in them. And we'll talk about that, as he's always a topic of discussion, I feel like, on this podcast. But for me, with these rushing quarterbacks here, especially with Kyler Murray at 7K, love that he had 13 rushing attempts last week. He had only 15, I think, total attempts in his first 3 games coming off of that injury. And going against the Philly team, their secondary is all banged up. I think that people will, look to stack him with a Hopkins, who I think, that's fine to do so. But really, the big games that Kyler Murray has, he doesn't always bring back a must-have game from DeAndre Hopkins. So I feel like people will kind of make the mistake there, quote unquote. I mean, sure, that can hit, but in tournaments, I love just getting Kyler Murray as a one-off and running it back with a guy like a Miles Sanders at the running back position we talk about there. And then, that KC game there, I mean, sure, Mahomes is always in play at 7,900. I think he's, a fantastic play. That game should be bananas in the Dome. I think it's going to be Taysom Hill. I don't think Breeze will be back, but something to monitor there. But at Taysom Hill at 6,000, I think he's my cash quarterback this week. I know we don't always talk about cash, but he comes in at 6,000 and he's just doing it all for this offense if he's going to be out there. I mean, we know about the rushing upside, but last week he was finally able to throw. Love to see that 291 yards there against Philly, a banged up secondary. And while, this KC defense, we were talking in our chat offline going into the week, and I was kind of talking about, I don't really trust KC to kind of do it, or I don't trust Tua, a rookie, against the KC defense. I think they could kind of come together. They really have kind of been coming off the hinges, and Kev, I guess about the defense more so than I do, but the past couple of weeks they just really have been getting gash and allowing points. And I love Taysom Hill, love Kamara this week. I just love getting exposure to that New Orleans offense there. So for me, it really comes down to getting exposure to games that I think are jumping off of the page. I do have interest in Lamar too. He's just doing everything right now. No Brown, no Boykin. Hard to trust the running back share there. I know Dobbins saw it there, but if something were to go awry in that Jacksonville game, I think we do rely on Lamar there. So those are my 3 quarterbacks that I'm going to this week, I think, as we're at Thursday now and just getting into the builds. But Maddie, where are you falling this week at quarterback, and what are you liking?
Yeah, I think this week is really tough at the quarterback position for me, because there are, a bunch of good plays that make sense and good matchups. And it's just going to honestly come down, like I feel like I'm a broken record, but it's just how I approach it. And I just load up on the lower owned stacks of all these guys that are in good matchups. So, I mean, we don't really need to go in, like you said, Mahomes, don't really need to go into him. Lamar, don't really need to go into him against Jacksonville. Russ may go under owned this week, which is something that I might have interest in. I know Washington defense has been pretty good, but they've also been boosted by a pretty weak schedule that they've played. Obviously, they play in the worst division in the NFL right now. So I think Russ is going to be interesting, because everybody is going to play Mahomes, Jackson, and Kyler before they play Russ this week. So probably my favorite, if I was just picking one, I really, really like Kyler Murray this week. The Eagles play a ton of man coverage. I don't know which corners are going to miss. I know that they're all banged up trying to get through practice this week. I haven't seen an updated practice report on that, but definitely something to keep an eye on, especially if Slate were to be out, because I expect him to follow DeAndre Hopkins around. But Kyler, we finally saw him last week. I think he's healthy now. I think that shoulder's back to being good, because he ran for 13 rush attempts, which is good for second most on the season. And that's where a lot of his, you go back and look at all his game logs. He had almost a rushing touchdown in every single game that he had played this year until the last couple of weeks. So that's where a lot of his value comes from, is running the ball and not as much throwing the ball. So you got the Eagles defense. Like I said, they play a ton of man coverage. They're the bottom of the barrel in facing rushing quarterbacks. And it's because they, play a lot of man coverage. You get defenders turn their backs, and the quarterback can get out there and run outside the pocket. So I really do like Kyler, and he would be the one guy I think if I was picking one quarterback this week, it's a Kyler week for me. And then you mentioned Tannehill as well. Like the Titans have scored over 30 points in 8 of their 14 games this year. And it's just a matter of touchdown hunting with the Titans offense, right? And so, like, if Henry doesn't score 2 or 3 touchdowns, Tannehill does throw 3 or 4 touchdowns, and then all of a sudden he is, the optimal quarterback. Right. And Detroit, I don't expect Tennessee to score less than 30 points against Detroit. So on teams you're not playing Henry, I think getting exposure to the Tennessee pass offense makes a ton of sense, especially, we'll talk about him, Corey Davis, in play every single week at his price. So, yeah, I like Tannehill once again. The Tennessee offense has been very good. You have to go back to week 10 to find the last time they scored less than 30 points. So they're clicking on all cylinders. Then you got Tom Brady, who I think nobody's going to play. He's been in good matchups the last couple weeks against Kansas City and Minnesota. He's thrown 5 touchdowns combined in those two games. But now we maybe get no Ronald Jones, and I think everybody's going to flock right to Leonard Fournette. And the Bucs have been one of the more pass-heavy offenses in the NFL, especially recently. So I think while everybody's going to Fournette, we may just see 50 attempts from Tom Brady, and they just may try to win that way. And it's Atlanta, right? And so we kind of talked about Atlanta last week when we were all over Justin Herbert in that game stack. Like, you go back and look at Atlanta's schedule that they've played ever since they made the coaching change, and it hasn't really been anything to write home about in terms of opposing pass attacks that they've faced. So I'm not off attacking Atlanta through the air, especially with Tom Brady. I think, it could be a get right spot for him. He's going to be low owned because he hasn't really been producing, but you take a look at his game logs, he does have that 35-point ceiling in him. He's hit 27, 35, 39, 36 DK points. So there's a handful of games there, where there's Slate winning upside. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much where I'm going to be at this week. I don't think I can play golf either. I'm curious to hear you guys' thoughts on Jalen Hurts after 18 rush attempts for 100 and something yards last week. I really like that Philly Arizona game. So I'm curious if you guys, do you just play Kyler Murray at 7K, or do you, fit in Jalen Hurts at 5,900?
Well, I kind of like Hurts and the Drake stack. I think that might go overlooked there because I really don't know. I was looking at the Philly kind of numbers just to kind of dive in, and it is ugly, which is kind of where I landed on Miles Sanders for GPPs at 6,900, just because you can't trust the wide receiver rotation right now at all. And you could throw in Goddard there maybe, but the tight end position is kind of just weird in general. And who's to say it's not going to be Ertz, who is, seeing his snaps increase since he's been back. So I think playing him naked, but then running it back with a guy like Drake, if Edmonds is going to be out and we can get some pass catching work from him there, that would be, a fantastic way to kind of position yourself there with Hurts. Kev, how are you feeling this week, man? Where your build's taking you early on in this week to get into, as we get into week 15 to hit the slate?
I think there's a lot of really good matchups, but I think there's some that have a lot of red flags as well. Heading into the week when I first kind of looked at everything, Ryan Tannehill stood out to me again, playing Detroit, but now with the possibility that Stafford doesn't play, with the chance that they just feed Derrick Henry and they don't really need to really open up this offense, it kind of takes me off them a little bit. Now, if Stafford plays, I might have a little bit more interest in this. And I think there's actually I think it's better than a 50% chance Stafford actually plays. The dude is tough as nails. He plays through just about everything. I don't think he can really hurt anymore. It's going to be a pain tolerance thing. And then I think they put a flak jacket on him. And so, if that happens, I think I'd have a little bit more interest in somebody like Ryan Tannehill at 6,700. Of course, that can go sideways because of the fact that, with obviously what they want to do with Derrick Henry and how he can kind of take over a game. But the one thing I'll say is with Derrick Henry is the fact that he is so explosive and breaks off these big runs. I think it's a little bit different in terms of some of the other running backs you may get because he's so efficient in his run. So he can kind of allow more for quarterbacks to eat a little bit more. We've seen Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry both have really big games, right? I think it was the Houston game where he had over 200 yards rushing, and Tannehill also had a great game. But regardless of that, that's kind of where I started. And there's a couple other guys that are kind of very similar to that. But for me, it really is going to start without talking about Patrick Mahomes, because Patrick Mahomes is in play every fucking week. And if Patrick Mahomes is ever going to be low owned, he could be this week against the Saints. And this, I'm sorry, I don't care how. The hard part with Patrick Mahomes though is how expensive his options are. You have Tyreek at 8,500. You have Kelsey, who is he's at 8K, right, or near 8K. I know he's definitely in the 7K.
He is 8K on the 8K on the dot. First
so
time I think I've ever seen an 8K tight end.
To stack him with him. So to me, it almost makes better sense to just play those guys as one-offs and not try to get with this whole entire stack. But if you can figure out a way to do so, I think you can get leverage there, because there's not going to be a lot of people who are going to be running that stack because of how expensive it is. Because I think everyone wants to play Derrick Henry, so it's going to be really hard to get Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill and Kelsey if that's what you want to do. I think that's something you should look at. But for me, Lamar Jackson makes a lot of sense. And I think you can just play him naked if you want to. I know we got the word about their wide receivers and they all got COVID, but it sounds like they all tested negative, and so they were just close contact. So there's really a good possibility they'll all be back. And so he'll have his full complement of weapons. And so that's not really a concern either. And they're playing Jacksonville. Jacksonville's fucking horrific. And as we've seen the last couple of weeks with Lamar, I mean, he has over 200 rushing yards over the last 2 weeks. So,
yeah, wow.
It's what I was playing him for earlier this year when he never delivered.
Right, exactly.
God, man.
And so he is, I mean, over the last 2 weeks, he's put up, I think, over 60 fantasy points. So the dude is back. And so, with this matchup against Jacksonville, like, it's just a great spot. Like, if you want to play him, like, it's hard sometimes to figure out who to play him with, because I like Marquise Brown. Marquise Brown has looked better, but Marquise Brown has been touchdown dependent. Like, he's not like he's been out here just killing it. It's been off fluke touchdowns. And then, you have Mark Andrews, who also is definitely in play, especially now, with as well as Lamar Jackson. But I like Lamar Jackson at 7,500. Like, I'm definitely going to have some exposure to him, whether it's naked or whatever. Like, I'm definitely going to be playing him. And then Jared Goff, there's no way I can get away with not playing Jared Goff at 6,300 against the Jets. The Jets have just been so fucking bad, against the pass. And I just don't think you can not play him. You can stack him with Woods and Kupp if you like to. I don't mind even playing him maybe with Akers, but I just love Jared Goff. It's just no way, 30-second pass DVOA that I can get away from Jared Goff. And then if I want to pay down at quarterback, like I said, I think Drew Brees plays this week. The Saints need this game desperately to have any shot at that home field advantage. And I don't think the Saints want to have to go on the road with this team and think that they're going to be able to beat some of these playoff teams. I think their best bet is being able to stay at home inside the Superdome. And so if they lose this game, it's going to be hard even with Drew Brees for them to win this game, let alone with Taysom Hill, they have no shot in hell to beat the Chiefs, because Taysom Hill was exposed last week.
Easy, Kev, easy.
They have no shot to beat the Chiefs with Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill's not a quarterback. We
couldn't even beat the Eagles.
Okay. We finally saw it last week. He's not a quarterback. So, anyways, I do think Drew Brees, if it's like a game time decision thing with Drew Brees, because they still haven't announced it, and I don't think they're going to announce it until they absolutely have to, but they did designate him for a return. But at 5,900 against Kansas City, I think I would be much more inclined to play Drew Brees with Kamara, and then or Michael Thomas, or both. Or Emmanuel Sanders, I think, would become in play as well. However you want to run that stack, and then run it back with one of the Chiefs pass catchers, I think is a stack that I would really be interested in, because I can't do it with Taysom Hill. But with Drew Brees, I would. And then if I want to pay down in this down range, Mitch Trubisky is still in play. This Bears offense has looked really good since he's taken over at quarterback. He is now throwing for 2 touchdowns in 4 of the 6 games he's played this year, and he has 2 games with 3 touchdowns. Minnesota's defense is better, for sure, than what they just faced, obviously, last week in Detroit. But I think that they're still vulnerable against the pass. I think they have the weapons to be able to do so. So I do like Trubisky at 5,500. And I can't lie, Trubisky's been just throwing some swag out there. I mean, just like he's just calling a shot now. I saw your tweet earlier today, Ryan, that you quote tweeted, and I love it. Love to see Mitch Trubisky out here, just throwing his dick on the table and just being like, look, I'm here. He just knocked out Deshaun Watson, the guy that everybody, that has all the memes have been about with Mitchell Trubisky and then passing on them. So I like Mitchell Trubisky at 5,500. And then if you want to get really weird, like I think you could.
Oh God.
Nick Mullins at 5,100 against Dallas in a really cheap stack with Brandon Iuke and the possibility of George Kittle returning this week. Like I don't hate it. It's something that I would have to do in like a large field tournament. It's not something I'm doing, on like, with any sort of, 3 entry max or single entry or anything like that. But I think in a, at the very least, in like a large field tournament, I think Nick Mullins with Iuke, with Kittle, I think is something you can do.
I'm just glad you didn't say Dwayne Haskins against Seattle. That's what I honestly thought that's what you were getting ready to say.
No, but when we talk about wide receivers, I fucking love Terry McLaurin.
I know. That's why I thought you were going to say Haskins, because I know you love McLaurin.
No. And then the Jalen Hurts call as well. I know I do have to mention, the dude ran 18 times last week. Arizona's defense is definitely not as good as what the Saints offer. And he looks competent as a passer too, which is something you can't say about Taysom Hill. So Jalen Hurts at 5,900, and nobody really his ownership was not nearly as high as what it probably should have been last week when he was 5,100. I get the matchup against the Saints and everything else, but this dude's ability to get out of the pocket and run, like I remember talking about it last week, and the guy ran for 1,200 yards in college, his senior season. So the dude can definitely has that Konami code factor. So definitely. I don't know. But for me, that's where I'm going. It's going to be, I'm going to have some Mahomes, but it's mainly going to be Lamar. It's going to be Goff. And then, like I said, with I'll have some other smaller or larger field stuff with Trubisky and guys like that.
Okay. And then Maddie, your interest is pretty much around Murray, and then Tannehill, and who's the other guy? I'm sorry.
I'm probably going to play 2 Derrick Henry teams. If I play 3 teams, I'm probably going to play 2 Derrick Henry teams, and my non-Henry team is going to be Tannehill.
Okay.
And my other 2 are probably going to end up being Brady and Kyler Murray. I don't know though, because I might force in some Russell Wilson. I haven't decided yet.
Okay, that's fair. And you're more of you only have a certain amount of builds that you do, Maddie. So your structure.
Yeah. Usually I only play. I don't think I've played more than 4 teams this year.
Okay.
So usually I play 3, sometimes 4, because I like to get in on all the 3 entry max tourneys. People talk about that, and I don't want to take too much time about it, Maddie. But when you say that you play like 3 teams or 4 teams, that's not how many tournament lineups that you submit. That's just the roster constructed, and then you can put it in on however many different entries that you want to, but you're only going to have money tied to 3 or 4 different rosters. It's not just, he's making a 3 max, whether it's the power max or whatever. No, that's fair. Yeah, I think I really do like Murray this week. I think I'll definitely have some Lamar Jackson. I'll probably have some Tannehill to hedge with Henry because I'm just playing him. And then I like what I can do with Jalen Hurts and maybe Kenyon Drake. And then I thought you were going to talk about Gardner Minshew. Kev was the guy that I thought you were alluding to, as he's now back in the fold there.
Hell. Motherfucking no! Like, I can't. Gardner Minshew's bad at football. I can't do it. But I will say, I did want to ask this really quick. Like with Stafford, if he plays, would you guys play him?
I couldn't, but
no. I think I would just be more likely to game stack it with Tannehill on the other side. Like, I don't mind at all running a Tannehill, Corey Davis, even if you wanted to run both Corey Davis and A.J. Brown. Like, you could run those guys from Tennessee and then run back Marvin Jones and Hawkinson on the other side if Stafford was in. Because, even if, like, let's say Stafford, he aggravates his rib in the first quarter and gets pulled, Chase Daniel can still get those guys there. Like, he'll still pepper the tight end. And we'll talk about another position he loves to target as well. But you could even go Swift, like run back Swift and Hawkinson
Right.
The only thing that worries me about Swift is the usage and how many, is he going to be the lead back? But this Tennessee defense is so fucking terrible.
It's awful. We have stacked the Tennessee games every single week this year.
And that's why I have a little bit of interest in Stafford if he plays, because I get it, and I think that's what most people's mindset is going to be, is that at any moment he could exit this game playing with that cartilage injury. But I don't know. Like the crazy part is the Lions actually aren't out of the playoffs. Like it's a long shot, but they're not out. And so that's why I could see him playing. And also this. Anyway, I'm not going to go into the rest of it. I was going to talk about them wanting to move on from him after the season, which is fucking stupid, regardless of that. But Stafford at 5,800 against this defense is super enticing to me. But there is also that major downside of he could get hit the first half and get knocked out of the game.
So let me say this. I won't play him on 3 or 4 teams, but if I was playing 20 max or whatever, like you guys play, I would have 1 or 2 Stafford teams if he was in. Absolutely. I've stacked against Tennessee all year, and this isn't a spot to change. He can shred them.
Yeah, I guess for me, the way he's priced around, it's the quarterback position, so nobody gets chalky, so to speak, quote unquote. But he's kind of priced around Jalen, kind of priced around Phillip Rivers, kind of priced around Taysom, Trubisky. It would take ownership away from those guys, which would make me like them even more if they're getting less ownership. And then I would up, my exposure to, like you're saying, guys like Marvin Jones, guys like TJ Hawkinson, because that would just be nice to have them without having Stafford on those teams. But would love that game to go over if Stafford was playing, for sure. So love getting exposure to all the pieces. And let's get in the running back there, as you guys were kind of talking about. Deandre Swift there to begin. He comes in at 6,400, was I guess a late active, if you want to say that, from the afternoon slate. Came in and kind of looked great. I mean, missed 3 weeks with a concussion and came back in and was limited in the work that he saw, only 12 opportunities there. But you definitely loved how much he was out there, and that he was actually had some pep in his step, so to speak. And Peterson was saying he didn't look like himself 2 weeks ago. So it looked like he was getting closer to looking like himself being back there. But let's talk about the top of the running back position. We got Derrick Henry and Dalvin Cook here again. I mean, Derrick Henry, what this guy is doing, I joked about it and half-heartedly because, of the winter is coming moniker and what this guy does in December. But we talked about the schedule in November, looking ahead to what Derrick Henry was going to be having on the schedule when he had that 200-yard game. And it's just could you have any more better of an end? If you have him in the fantasy playoffs and redraft, congratulations that you drafted him in the first round, because it's going to pay off for you. And he gets a home matchup here with Detroit. If there's no Matthew Stafford, this game is just going to – it just screams to me that they're going to lean on Derrick Henry to kind of just take him to the promised land. They won't have to lean on to Tannehill, and he makes for a great pivot, I think, in GPPs because of the ownership that Henry will see. People are not going to want to build a lineup that doesn't have Henry in it, because they'll be looking at it and say, oh my God, if he goes for the 200-yard game and 3 touchdowns, I don't want to miss out on it. But Kev's alluded to this time and time again, he's 9,500. And if he's not catching passes, which he hasn't been, then you really just need him to get there on yards and to get the scoring. And if it goes to Jonnu, if it goes to Corey Davis, if it goes to AJ Brown, he might get you 20, but at 9,500, that's not really what you're paying him for. So it's hard for me. Like I said, we're early on in the week, and I really want to have teams with him and make it work because, Maddie, you alluded to it. The running back position is kind of gross this week. I mean, on Monday, I was feeling like, wow, I might not even want to play this week because I just wasn't – nothing was kind of speaking to me. Mm-hmm. But as we've gotten into it a little bit, and I want to get your take here too, Maddie, as you aren't on as many people. But I think that, guys like Kenyon Drake was popping off to me, and then we had the Edmonds news come out. If he misses, I think that he's a fantastic GPP play, as we've kind of seen him. I mean, yes, the scoring has really been carrying him, and we love that. He's got, 5 touchdowns in the past 4 games. So you definitely love seeing that. But just the work that he's getting, I mean, 2 games where he's had over 24 opportunities. here in the past 4 weeks. I love that. Love that he's, somehow or some way gotten back into the targets that he's seeing, and it's not just Chase Edmonds. And then the other thing that I had that I was looking at with Kenyon Drake too was that, so here's the red zone work for Arizona since week 10 inside the 20, and Drake has 28 opportunities, and then Kyler and Edmonds are tied for second with 5 apiece. So like this dude is getting the ball when they get into scoring position, and they should be able to do so at ease against Philadelphia here, as their secondary is banged up and the defense is kind of banged up. So definitely love him for cheap. I think Dobbins does kind of make some sense to me because he's 5,900 here. Do they lean on the rookie if they kind of get away from this game? We've seen them in the past bench Lamar when games get out of hand, but still, keep the running backs in there. But it is frustrating to see Gus Edwards get that work there. And, he was able to get that touchdown in the Cleveland game. Everybody was scoring in the Cleveland game. So he is kind of hard to trust. Another guy who I feel like will be hard to trust for me is Cam Akers at 6,600. I mean, talk about just a crazy price increase. And solely, yes, he did get 171 yards against New England, but I feel like it was solely to the fact that he's playing the Jets now, and the Jets have just been giving up points in bunches. And so at 6,600 for a Cam Akers guy, when he's been priced at $4K traditionally all this year, and then paying up that $2,000 price tag, in a situation where it's a good matchup for Goff. Like Kev said, he has interest in Goff, and Kupp could definitely get there. Woods could definitely get them there, or maybe they lean on Henderson if the game gets out of hand too. We don't know that Akers will get all the work, so he's tough to trust. And then Jonathan Taylor, another rookie back, again, 7,200, has extreme inflation on his price tag, and it's just frustrating because he has the best game of the season, and then we have the OC after the game, in press conferences this week talking about, well, yeah, we're still going to ride the hot hand. It doesn't mean that it's just going to be Jonathan Taylor's world. So it's just crazy that, these rookies are really popping off and they're good, but it's hard to trust them. So really want to hear where you guys are. I do love Drake, do like Henry. I will have exposure to Miles Sanders there. The guy's he did it against New Orleans. He did it against the Steelers. And if they're going to give him the ball and Hurts is helping move them into scoring position, then I love getting leverage on him because he's priced at 6,900. And it seems fair for what he has been, but Jonathan Taylor shouldn't be priced ahead of him just based off of like talent and what he offers and what upside he offers there. And then Alvin Kamara at 7,400, I will have a lot of him. One exposure to that team. Maddie, you talked about it, him being people were writing him off, but we hadn't seen what it looks like in a close game script. Okay, we got to see that. We got to see Kamara get back to work, and it actually kind of helped the offense, even though they lost the game. So now we're talking about the Chiefs, where you attack them on the ground with the running back. Sure, Lat Murray should be in there. He should see some work, but I think Kamara here at 7,400, it just feels like a misprice. Like going against KC, that's a good matchup. You priced up Jonathan Taylor in a good matchup to 7,200, and Kamara is still seeing around this price range and has his best game with Hill. It seems like a misprice, so I do love that. Kev, talk to me, man. Running back, how you feeling? What you liking?
The big, massive Derrick Henry question in the room is can you pay $9,500 for Derrick Henry? And I go back and forth on it. Like I did play him a little bit last week in the early only slate but at 9,500, like he has to score 30 to 35, probably 35 really at 9,500 for him to really kill you because of what it's going to take to get him in. I get that the running backs as a whole haven't been fantastic this year. And so if a guy, even if he scores 30 on some weeks, that could be enough to get you there even at his price. But still, if some of these other guys pop off and that are much cheaper, Alvin Kamara, for example, at 7,400, absolutely love Alvin Kamara this week, which is funny, right? Because you get the narrative of everybody that he's done with Taysom Hill, and he's not going to catch passes, but in a game that they're actually trailing and they have to throw the ball, that all of a sudden Kamara gets 10 targets.
Funny how that works, huh?
Yeah. And then you have Jonathan Taylor, who's in the ultimate smash spot against Houston at 7,200. David Montgomery, we saw what David Montgomery did last week against that defense. And for whatever reason, they decided after the 80-yard touchdown that we're only going to give you like 4 or 5 more carries after that.
It didn't make any sense.
No,
like, I don't know what that was about. But regardless of that, like, so with Derrick Henry at 9,500, like, he has to go absolutely off to be able to play him. And for him to meet that price tag. And there's only one running back that I really ever feel confident in playing at that price tag, and his name's Christian McCaffrey. And Christian McCaffrey's not on the slate.
Yeah.
Can you play Derrick Henry at 9,500? Yeah. Am I going to play Derrick Henry at 9,500? I'm going to be much less than the field. I can say that. I will probably have a lineup or two with Derrick Henry in it, but I'm damn sure not going to be at where the field's going to be at on him in this matchup. I get it. It's against Detroit. Detroit's been fucking terrible against the run. But if he goes for, let's say, 160-1, that's not good. That's not good enough at 9,500. Like, he has to go 203.
But
because he's not going to catch passes.
I agree with you, Kevin. I think that maybe we extrapolate that a little bit more. So, like, let's say he goes for 120, 125, like something that is actually realistic for what he is and what Detroit offers there. But he only gets one. Like, you're still only looking at 20, 22. Maybe he catches one pass for 10 yards or whatever the case may be. He kind of falls into that. Like, that's still just not enough, right? So even like the 60 is like way down bottom of the barrel. Like, you are jumping over hoops if you faded Derrick Henry and he only gets 60 yards, even if he scores a touchdown. But I think it's realistic that he can get 100 yards. But, like, are we getting the 172 touchdown game? Are we getting the 200-yard multi-score game from Derrick Henry that you're going to pay for him at this $9,500 price tag? Even on FanDuel, you're paying upwards of $10K for him. That's where it really becomes difficult. And like you talked about, Maddie, like that's what kind of makes it tough too, is because Tannehill can hit when Henry hits, and Tannehill can hit when Henry doesn't hit. So, like, if these touchdowns are, and this is a team that we can attack all over the field. AJ Brown gets loose, Corey Davis gets loose, Jonnu gets loose, Tannehill is running. Like, I mean, there's just with Daniel playing too, it makes it that much more. It makes it somewhat harder for me to fade him consciously, because I know that my process tells me to play a Derrick Henry in that spot when the game is slow. But it also makes me excited in 150 max tournaments, 20 max tournaments, to be like, okay, what is the best team I can put together that does not have Derrick Henry on it? Because he is going to be upwards of 30%, 40% in fields that you're playing in. And I do agree, Kev, that we're looking at the lowest output that he could put up, and especially on a slate like this, where we don't have much that's jumping out to us. More people will say, just jam them in. And I'm always the guy who's like, well, if the play's the play, it's the play. But when you're talking about first place and you're talking about taking down a tournament, that fade could really be, the difference of you sharing it with somebody or taking it down yourself. So.
And I just feel like more often that anytime that it feels like it's Derrick Henry smash week, it's not Derrick Henry smash week. It always seems to come whenever he is at much lower ownership. I don't know. And so for me, I like I said, I'm not going to have much Derrick Henry at all. It just has to go so well. So like I said, Kamara, Jonathan Taylor, absolute must for me. I do think James Robinson is interesting, and I know nobody's going to play him against Baltimore, but with Gardner Minshew back, this is actually, I think, an upgrade for him because of how much pass catching volume he's going to see with Gardner Minshew. And we know you don't have to worry about anybody else touching the ball in that offense. And they can even just keep it relatively close. So I do think James Robinson is an interesting, pivot off of like a Jonathan Taylor or a David Montgomery or Kamara at his price tag of 7,100. I know it's not the best matchup against Baltimore. Baltimore is, I think, like 11th in rush DVOA on the year. They've been a pretty solid rush defense. But I do think with his added volume of pass catching work that you should see with Gardner Minshew at 7,100, I think that he is an interesting play. Cam Akers at 6,600. I know the Jets have been good against the run, but I think some of that is a little bit of smoke and mirrors due to the fact that they are just so fucking bad against the pass that teams just decide not to throw the ball or not to run the ball against them. I mean, the Chiefs, that's exactly what they completely abandoned the run against them and just fucking aired it out all game because because we saw last week Carson went 12 for 76. Hyde went like 13 for almost 70. Like they certainly can be had on the ground. And, you know, I do think at 6,600, I still think Cam Akers is interesting. I would like to see more pass catching volume because he only saw like 2 targets last week, but they also didn't really have to throw the ball last week. And then if you're wanting to pay down, and then J.K. Dobbins, 5,900, that's fucking way too cheap against this Jacksonville defense. It is tilting with, I think you guys mentioned it, about Gus Edwards and him, you know, vulturing touchdowns away from him on the goal line. So that is something that I think to monitor there. But you mentioned Kenyon Drake. Like, I just don't know if I can play him against Philly at 5,500. I know he's going to get all the volume, especially with Chase Edmonds out. But that Philadelphia defense, now it hasn't been as good recently. I went and looked the last 4 weeks. They're like 18th in rushing yards allowed over the last 4 games. But man, like I just don't love it. Like I just don't know what kind of ceiling he has. I know at 5,500 he doesn't have to do a ton. If he gets 20 to 22, you're probably pretty happy with that, you know, at that price tag. But I just don't know what to expect from him, you know, if Chase Edmonds doesn't play. And if Chase Edmonds play, then I really can't get excited about it against Philadelphia. I just don't think he has that much of a ceiling. As far as Jeff Wilson, Raheem Mostert goes, like I really want to play one of them, but I don't know which one to fucking play because the way they distribute touches in this backfield, because not one of them are really a true workhorse here. I think both of them will see, you know, 10 plus touches out of the backfield. And, you know, someone utilizes a pass catcher. And Mostert, who we don't even know exactly if he's going to play, it looks like he's trending towards possibly playing. If he wasn't, then Jeff Wilson would probably be the absolute fucking chalk of the week at 5,100. Right. But if Mostert plays, like, I still think I would maybe have some interest in Jeff Wilson, even if Mostert plays, because they do utilize him on the goal line. They've been using him as a pass catcher. Last week he had 5 targets at 5,100 against this Dallas fucking defense that gets run all over by everybody. I do think is interesting, but I just don't think there's enough volume there that I can get super excited about. And then in the 4K range, you have Leonard Fournette, who is going to be chalk as fuck at 4,500 without Ronald Jones. But, you know, Atlanta's defense, I will say this, they have not been great recently against the run either. I think they've allowed it's like the 9th most rushing yards over the last 4 weeks. At 4,500, he's going to be involved in the passing game. It's like, how do you not play, I guess, Fournette? Like, I don't want to play him because I know how chalky he's going to be. But at the same time,
but I mean, yeah, like you look at it, like you look what he's done with him in a limited role, and he still puts up double-digit DK points in like half of his games. So it's like he's 4,500. He's not 6K. He's almost min price. I'm having the same issue as you trying to decide on that, like whether I'm just going to eat the chalk and play him at 4,500 because of how awful running back is. I mean, Kev, you just literally went through and did my job for you. Like you went through and named every single guy that you like, but you also gave the reason why you have concerns for each and every single one of those players. And that is why, you know, when I first went through the slate, I said, no chance in hell I'm playing 9,500 Derrick Henry. But then you go through all these running backs, you're like, okay, he's got issues. I don't see how he gets to a ceiling. He has a ceiling, but I don't know how he gets there. Like Dobbins is losing work to Gus Edwards at the goal line. Like, which San Francisco running back is it going to be this week? Is the Rams going to lean on Cam Akers? Are they going to throw the whole time because Jets are a pass funnel? It's like the only 2 guys I am super confident in their workload this week are Alvin Kamara and Derrick Henry. And it's like outside of that, and James Robinson, you could even put James Robinson in that category of workload. Outside of that, I mean, Fournette, if we get him, I would assume he gets, the main workload, but I guess maybe not. Maybe, they were starting to involve LaShawn McCoy last week, and Fournette was inactive. So like how sure are we that Fournette would handle the bulk of the work? And like, does it just become a 3-man committee, or does Brady just throw 55 times? And I just don't know the answer to that. And so it's like there's so many red flags on all these guys. And then you have like guys like Swift and Miles Sanders who don't get 20 opportunities on a regular basis, but when they do get opportunities, they crush. And so like, yes, I want to play Miles Sanders. And a thing with Miles Sanders too, I think Jalen Hurts actually helps Miles Sanders because when you're a linebacker or defensive line, you have to respect Jalen Hurts' ability to run when he runs that read option or whatever. It opens up lanes for Miles Sanders to get outside the tackles a little easier. And so I think that helps him. And the concern you have when there is a rushing quarterback in is the lack of targets, because generally that quarterback will just tuck and run instead of dumping off. But Miles Sanders still had 5 targets last week. So if Jalen Hurts is going to continue to target him and Sanders is going to get near 20 touches, I think he's in that safe workload tier of Robinson, Kamara, and Derrick Henry this week. And it's just, man, I don't feel good about anybody else. Like, I want to play Swift too. And even if Daniel is in, so Daniel, me and Debro went back and kind of sifted through this over the last 2 days. You look at all of Chase Daniel, his attempts since 2018, he's thrown 133 passes. 41% of them have gone to the running back position.
Wow.
It's like almost 50. It's like over 50 attempts. It's stupid. And a lot of that was with Tariq Cohen in Chicago. Like, he had a 9-target game and a 14-target game. And it's Daniel. He loves the tight end and he loves the running back. He's king of checkdowns. So I think Swift is interesting, second week back off a multi-week absence. And we just talked about how awful Tennessee is. So I definitely do have interest in Swift. And we saw him get a couple goal line carries last week too, which is good to see. So yeah, it's running backs gross, man. I don't know what I'm going to end up doing, Ryan. This is why I told you I really only have interest in like 3 or 4 guys, and I truly mean that. It's like there are paths for some of these guys, but it's also if you told me every one of those guys busted, I would also believe you.
Right, and go ahead, Kev.
I just there is one possible path of getting off of Leonard Fournette and not playing him and playing somebody else. And I think if Salvon Ahmed does not play, which he's practiced limited, but he's been in the red shirt, I think DeAndre Washington is interesting against the Patriots. Last week he carried the ball 13 times. He had 4 targets. There was a game that they were down heavily in the second half, 30-10 at Chiefs. We don't have to worry about that against the Patriots. And this is a slow-moving game. The Patriots have been fucking terrible against the run this year. They are 25th in adjusted line yards, 30th in power, 24th in second level, and they're 27th in rush DVOA. Like, he's only 4,600. And I think, like, I would have some serious interest in DeAndre Washington again this week if Salvon Ahmed's out and DeAndre Washington starts, because I'm not worried about them getting boat raced off the field and them having to turn over and just throw the ball the entire time. They're probably going to be missing Gesicki as well. And so they could possibly also miss Devontae Parker. So if they're missing all these guys, like, I could see them really heavily leaning on the run. And so I do think DeAndre Washington, nobody's going to play him in a really good matchup. I think you can pretty much expect for him to handle the most of the touches, which I think he handled over 60% of the carries in the backfield last week, again, in a matchup against the Chiefs where they were trailing for a lot of this game. He had a goal line opportunity. They brought in what the fuck his name is, the Wilkins, the big ass fucking defensive lineman, and he didn't block anybody. I don't know what the fuck his fat ass was doing out there. And but regardless, like, I think DeAndre Washington is a super sneaky play and his leverage off the chalk of Leonard Fournette and a good matchup himself.
I just don't get good vibes about Leonard Fournette chalk at all. I don't know.
Well, it's Bruce Arians, right? I don't know if you can ever trust fucking. It's like, can you trust fucking Bruce Arians? Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't even know if it would surprise me if they all of a sudden Keyshawn Vaughn all of a sudden comes out and gets fucking half the workload here in this backfield. Like, there's so many different, like, trusting what Bruce Arians is going to do is so fucking tough. Like, should this be a great matchup? It's Leonard Fournette. He's playing Atlanta. Atlanta's defense has struggled recently to stop the run. Everything makes sense for Leonard Fournette to smash this price, but I feel the same with you. Like, I do not feel great about even thinking about playing Leonard Fournette, especially at probably 30-40% ownership.
Yeah, and it's like,
right.
it would be one thing if he was active last week and we're like, okay, he's just going to step into the role. But like the fact that he legitimately was just healthy scratch, that scares the shit out of me.
No, I agree, Maddie. I mean, it's not going to be easy to trust this situation. And if people want to just ride that out, I mean, this is when it's a great time to play, the tournaments in the large fields. If you're going to get 45% of the lineups having Leonard Fournette in them and that bus, because you kind of know what the build's going to be, right? If people are playing Leonard Fournette, they're playing Derrick Henry.
They're playing Derrick Henry.
Hardly any teams that don't have Fournette and Derrick Henry to them, because you can play him. So you kind of know then what the receivers are going to be, and kind of what you're going up against. I mean, it's so hard to touch. And the matchup is like, it's Atlanta, and the best way to attack them is on the ground, but it's not like the Carolina matchup that he faced earlier where he got 102. And I know people will scroll through box scores and see that and be like, oh man, if Leonard Fournette has the backfield to himself, like this is what his upside is. And it's like, well, no, not exactly. They're still on the road here. This is still an Atlanta team that, I mean, regardless of what they're playing for, I think it's pride at some point, I guess. I don't know. I mean, they still are kind of in these games and making things interesting. So, it's going to be a hard pass for me there. But
Ryan, are you watching this Chargers drive here?
I am. Yeah, it's crazy.
You see Herbert just fumble at the goal line, and they were somehow
he just scored though. They did another QB sneak. He just scored.
He held on.
But what was the ruling on the fumble?
So he fumbled at 4. They said it was at the goal line, and so they can't advance it. So they put it back to the goal line.
Got it. Hilarious. That's just a perfect Chargers Raiders way for the game to end.
Hey, Chargers +3 covered and the overhit, thanks to OT.
Oh my God! Yes, it did. Wow.
Let's go.
Okay, Maddie, I see you. Line movement. No, I think, running back is going to be pretty straightforward for me. The last guy that I wanted to touch on real quick before we move to wide receiver position is David Montgomery, being at 7,000. This guy has had 3 of his best career games in back-to-back weeks, all in great spots. And now he's going against Minnesota, and I don't know here. Like, he's 7K. Very hard to trust that. He was 5,500, or let's go back. Green Bay, 5,300, 28 points. 5,500 against Detroit, 27 points. 6,500 against Houston, 27.5 points. He will garner some ownership, but I'm not going to go back there to the well. It's very point chasey. And I like that he's actually hitting his stride. It's great to see as a fan. I'm happy to see the pick working out to some extent, but for DFS, I can't do it this week.
Yeah, give me Robinson, give me Miles Sanders, and give me Kamara at the same price, basically.
Right. And then what about Dalvin Cook on the other side? He saw 30 opportunities the first time these two teams met. Now, that was with Nick Foles. Nick Foles was turning the ball over, gave them a lot of time to kind of control the game and control that kind of pace there to get him there. And he hasn't really had too many successful games for what his price is this week against the Bears. Like, the Bears do a decent job of limiting plays, explosive plays on the run, so to speak. They do give them up in the passing attack, and we can talk about options there later. But do you guys have any interest in Dalvin Cook at all outside of what would possibly be a game stack there?
I mean, if you're playing the Millie Maker in one of those massive field tournaments, I think he's an incredible pivot off of Derrick Henry. Like, if you're going to run the same build where you've got cheap value guys and you're like, oh, let me pay up for a running back, just throwing Dalvin Cook instead. But nah, in a vacuum, lower field, less entrance in the field, single entries, 3 entry max, just give me Henry for the same price, and I'll be different elsewhere.
Fair enough. Let's talk about wide receiver, guys, as we open it up and move the podcast along here. Thanks, everybody, for rocking with us. Week 15 main slate breakdown here. You're listening to DJ Nation podcast. DJ Nation Pod is where you can find us on Twitter. Wide receiver this week, we got Tyreek Hill, DK Metcalf, Calvin Ridley, all above 8K. Then we're getting into DeAndre Hopkins in a fantastic spot here at 7,900. Very interesting to see where you guys are at there. AJ Brown, who is listed as questionable here, but he just wasn't at practice this week. So something, I guess, to monitor. He was limited on Wednesday. It would be crazy if he somehow missed this game, just to add something else into the slate here. But Allen Robinson as well, 7,400 going against Minnesota, has had some pretty pedestrian games against Minnesota as far as 7 and 74, I think was one of them. And then 8 for 60 something, I believe was the other one. So he hasn't really had his 120 in a score games that we, are always looking for, and that he just got last week against Houston on 13 targets. And then we're getting into guys like Michael Thomas, who's questionable, just showed up on the practice report today, something to monitor there. Adam Thielen, Cooper Kupp to round out the 7K guys. And then, Julio doesn't sound like he's going to play, but he's 6,900. Robert Woods, 6,800, the cheaper option there of the two. Kev, I know you talked about Tyler Lockett. I'll be curious to hear your thoughts there. I mean, so wide receiver, I think, just like with any week, the past couple and pretty much this year, I think I've kind of alluded to it as well as Maddie and Kev too, just paying down at wide receiver because there's just so many options at the wide receiver position that just come into play here. It's not a Michael Thomas year, so to speak, where you're paying $9K for Michael Thomas because he's going out there and he's getting 30, 35, 40 points on a week like he was last week. Tyreek Hill, DK Metcalf, Ridley, I do have interest in those guys in large tournament fields. But when I'm getting into my, 3 max builds that I'm doing, 5 max, on FanDuel, I'm looking at the guys that we've been talking about week in and week out, like Corey Davis, 5,800 going against Detroit. Why is this guy still 5,800? He just disappointed last week. Okay, so chalk Corey Davis, disappointed everybody. He was 20% owned. Now he's going to be less than 10% owned. I'm playing him. I mean, it's a great spot. Games have been going crazy for Tennessee. I think all their games have gone over 57 total. So we know points are going to be scored there. And definitely, it just would suck if AJ Brown missed because he would then become somewhat kind of popular again. But if AJ Brown's out there, I think Corey Davis, great play. Brandon Iuke at 6,300 going against Dallas. Nick Mullins or CJ Beathard, I don't care who's out there. They better be feeding this dude the fucking rock because he's been absolutely amazing paying off that price tag. And even as we get lower, T.Y. Hilton, I know that we've had conversations in our chats offline, and T.Y. Hilton's 5,500. He's going to be popular. He has excellent games against Houston, has caught his stride there. And I do have interest. If you're playing cash, this is a week where you're looking at T.Y. Hilton chalk, Derrick Henry chalk, and you're like, okay, let me take these guys. Because if they, somehow disappoint on their price tag, you're 50% around the field on having those guys in lineups, but you can get kind of different elsewhere to kind of make your pivots and just take it. And then I usually will lock in those guys in cash. And then, okay, for my tournament lines now, let me be, underweight on these guys and overweight at some other spots. T.Y. Hilton is in a good spot, but is it going to be Jonathan Taylor? Is it going to be Pittman? Is it going to be the tight ends? There are ways for T.Y. Hilton to fail. He's still T.Y. Hilton. So it makes me scared to just play a chalky T.Y. Hilton. Russell Gage is interesting to me. If Julio Jones misses, Russell Gage has been pretty solid without Julio in the lineup. Just getting solid production. We know Matt Ryan's throwing the ball. The run game has not been there with Gurley and Brian Hill. Gurley's only playing 33%, 37% of the snaps right now. So it's they love to throw. I'm hoping, Maddie, that you're right and that Brady, or maybe it is Fournette, and I don't care. I won't have him, but Fournette pushes the pace, and then maybe the touchdowns go to Gronk or Brown or Evans, somebody that I do have, because I hope the pace can be pushed, because I do love Russell Gage as a run back option there at 4,700. I just feel like he's kind of cheap. I do have some interest in Kirk on Murray teams, because I've seen it happen before where Kyler's in a good spot and people play Hopkins, who also will be in a good spot, but he's 7,900. And like I said, the smash games from Hopkins don't always come when Kyler smashes. They had that lucky touchdown at the end on the Hail Mary, but usually the blow-up games are going to Kirk there. He hasn't had one in a while, but this Philly secondary doesn't have anybody to kind of stop him. there. So I'm definitely interested in him. And I do, just going back up to the top, and Maddie, I'll pass it back to you. I do have interest in Tyler Lockett this week. I mean, he is a guy, they've been priced around the same, him and Metcalf. And so now we're got Metcalf at 8,600. You got Tyler Lockett all the way down at 6,700. And yeah, he hasn't really got over, to the 70-yard mark since week 7, but he's still consistently, been around 60, 50, 60 and catching, 5 balls, 9 balls, 4, still has a decent floor. So if he starts getting scores again, and this is a great pass catching matchup, and again, slot receivers against the Jets too, they have nobody. Their secondary is abysmal. So no surprise that they give up like the 4th most to outside wide receivers. And I think the most points to slot receivers. So I just think he'll go kind of overlooked. And even as a one-off play, I kind of like Lockett to get exposure. Or I'm sorry, I'm talking about the Jets. I meant Washington. Washington's given up points to the number 1 wide receiver there. I was thinking about last week against the Jets. But regardless, I like Tyler Lockett this week as a pivot off of those guys like Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp, who I think will carry ownership there as one-offs. And getting a guy like Tyler Lockett as a Seattle one-off will be something I have interest in. Maddie, what are you looking at this week for wide receiver?
Yeah, so there's a couple important things I just want to touch on real quick, and instead of going down a list of guys. Ryan, you mentioned getting exposure to that Tampa Bay Atlanta game, and that's a game you can really stack up pretty cheap too. Like Evans is the most high; he's the highest price at 6,500, and then you've got what Godwin is just below that at 62. Antonio Brown, who I'm going to keep playing him because I have no choice. I'm in the hole after 2 weeks. So he's 5,400. And then, like you said, Russell Gage, you can run it back on the other side with him, which we've attacked slots against Tampa Bay all year. 4,700. That's a cheap game stack there. If you run Brady, AB, and one of those wide receivers, or even Gronk, attach your tight end to your quarterback. And now you've got a really cheap stack of one of the highest total games of the week. And that's both teams love to throw the ball. So I think that's a very interesting way to go, especially a wide receiver. I want to make a note on Deandre Hopkins. Weeks 11 through 13, when Kyler Murray was supposedly hurt, and he only had just comparing that because those are the weeks Kyler Murray only ran 5 times each game. So that's kind of an indication, that he was dealing with an injury. So those 3 weeks, DeAndre Hopkins' depth of target was around 6.5 yards. Last week, it jumped back up to 9. And on the year, he's a little over 8. So I think they were kind of trying to accommodate Kyler weeks 11 through 13. And finally, in week 14, Kyler's rush attempts went back up to 13, second highest on the year. And Hopkins' depth of target also jumped back up. So with the Eagles being out, being down a couple corners possibly, or guys just playing hurt, I absolutely love Hopkins this week. 7,900, I think, is too cheap for him. We already talked about the Tennessee wide receivers. I mentioned them every single week on the pod. I love Corey Davis. He's one of my favorite mid-range guys every single week, basically. Brandon Iuke, Ryan, you touched on him. I don't know that I will make a team without Kamara or Brandon Iuke this week. Those two guys just their usage and matchup and ceiling and floor are just too high and too good for this week, especially with how this week is shaping up to where we don't really have guys like that across the board. So give me those two guys, Kamara and Iuke. They're just, they're mispriced for what their role in matchup is. And I think both guys absolutely smash. So I love that call there. Outside of that, as far as value, I love the Christian Kirk call. As we just mentioned, if Kyler's healthy, I think a lot of people, either run him naked or single stack him with Hopkins. But you go back to the first half of the year, and I mean, Kirk does have a 25-point ceiling. He is the deep threat in the offense, and we know, Philly plays a lot of man, and a good way to beat man coverage is to attack him deep. So I think Kirk is one of the better value plays on the slate considering his ceiling. And another guy I think nobody's really going to talk about everybody wants to play TY this week, and shout out to Will in the chat. He already took the words out of my mouth. He said, "Nah, it's not a TY week. Because he's popular now. I'll go straight to Pittman." And that's exactly my thinking too. Like, with how bad Houston is, give me a cheap wide receiver that can smash on limited volume, and that's Michael Pittman. So I think 4,800 for him against Houston makes a ton of sense. But outside of that, I mean, I guess we probably need to have the conversation as to what's going on, what you guys are going to do with Miami. I mean, Lynn Bowden Jr., 3,600. I assume.
Yeah, I missed that. I like him.
I mean, he had
Jonathan Jones corner.
Yeah,
I think it's tough, but it's tough though because I mean, Stephon Gilmore is still out there. Isn't he? I mean, J.C. Jackson's still out there. I mean, like I don't know. Like it's one thing playing against Kansas City secondary. It's a whole other thing. This New England secondary is still really good. Now at 3,600, he doesn't have to do a ton. Either to be able to get on top of that, he goes 5 for 60, and you're not.
And
you're
he's
not
strictly playing wide receiver
too.
Like I know DK has him appropriately listed as a wide receiver, but I know he was drafted as a running back, and that's kind of where the Raiders had him originally. But for Miami, you look at his snaps; he has played 0 snaps basically at running back, and it's really all been slot snaps. So I mean, they're very shorthanded, but at the same time, Bill Belichick against rookie QBs, same spot, that we played the Patriots D 2 weeks ago against Herbert, and they ended up 45-0. So I don't does he realize that Tua is just going to try to check down to Bowden all game long, and that's what he takes away and makes him, force the ball deep? I don't know. I think he's going to end up popular, but I mean, 3,600, it's hard to bust at that price for, I think, the volume that he's going to see.
Yeah, the game as a whole is just ugly too. I mean, I would
gross.
love to just be able to write off, a game off of an 11 gamer to just not play anybody from there. But I do like the Miami defense. I know we're jumping ahead here, and even at their price tag is like 3,700. But this Patriots offense has just been so abysmal, and I don't know. Maybe it's in Cam's head right now. Like they just can't get anything going, and if he struggles, and they get short fields, that's why I like Bowden. Because we could be looking at him kind of just get there. Even if the Patriots want to do that, want to stop, them from scoring, Cam just kind of puts them into these positions where it's like, shit, we can't do that. I mean, that's kind of why they took him out of that game, and they benched him for fucking Stidham because, they just get so frustrated with what the offense is looking like. And if we get, more opportunities for the Miami offense to kind of do some things with them, we could see more plays from the Miami side too. And at 3,600, I think he'll definitely pay off of that. And this Jonathan Jones guy for New England, he's been targeted on 28% is what I saw of his routes ran against him. So he's definitely been the people have been taking advantage of him regardless of the rest of that secondary that's been out there. I don't want to play him if he's, popular, so to speak, but I definitely want to have some exposure to him just because I think the play makes sense.
I think he does end up popular because, I mean, you look at every single position across the board. I mean, quarterbacks are kind of gross below 6K. Running backs are gross below 6K. Wide receivers get gross below 5K. We'll talk about tight end. Tight end, I guess there are a couple 3K guys to have interest in. And then even defense, I'm one that I love the punt defense, but you got to go all the way up to 3K before you feel somewhat decent about a defense this week. And that's the Patriots. All the other options, I mean, are kind of gross. What's Miami's price? Are they cheap?
No, they're 37.
Yeah. So they're 37. Yeah. So it's we'll talk about defense too, but I mean, just when you have the nature of or the makeup of this kind of slate where there are no obvious values, I think you see a shiny new toy like Bowden, who's getting volume in the pass game on a PPR site. 3,600, he's going to be the number one option probably in the offense. I think he will garner a good amount of ownership.
And Kev, I'll let you take it over as we get into finish up wide receivers and get into tight ends too. But if he is going to be popular, Maddie, the guy who I've circled right next to his name and put onto my spreadsheet before the pod was Keelan Cole at 4K.
My boy.
Your boy. I mean, you've talked about him, it feels like, for 2 years now, probably longer. And he comes in at $4K. He's only $400 more. And with Gardner Minshew back out there, he had a surefire rapport with him. And that goes back into 2019 when these guys were playing together. And we know that the last time that Gardner Minshew was on the field, like Chark was calling them out, saying that he wasn't giving them any catchable passes to throw. So like I could see Keelan really popping off and having a game. I mean, this guy's fucking good. And I know he's priced in the bottom barrel range. So people don't, he's priced around guys like Chad Hansen and Kendrick Bourne and Travis Fulgham and Mooney and Chenault and Demir Bird. And people are looking at that just like, oh yeah, this guy kind of belongs here. But it's like, nah, man, if this dude was like in an offense where he was able to shine, I think he could really do some things because of what he's doing with the likes of Jake Luton and Gardner Minshew and whoever else they're rolling back there. So he would be a nice pivot for me in a game that I expect Baltimore to kind of, take the reins and run away from and leave Jacksonville to have to pass. And he could see a lot of opportunities there.
Yeah, I guess my only concern would be Keelan runs a lot in the slot, and that's where Humphrey plays when there is three wide receivers. That would be the only downside. But I mean, he's really, been much better when Minshew's been in the game. He's kind of one of Minshew's main targets. I think he had the second most targets on the team through weeks 1 through 7 behind, and it was only 2 targets behind Chark. So they did kind of spread the ball around in those weeks. But I mean, Cole seeing, second most targets on the team was definitely significant. And like you said, it's going to be a good game script for him. And we just saw Cleveland put up 42 points against them just on Monday. So, I mean, I guess this isn't – I mean, Baltimore hasn't really been that dominant of a defense this year. So, you're going to get no ownership on him. And I'd rather play him than like a Kendrick Bourne who checks out in a good matchup but doesn't really have a ceiling. I think you might see some ownership on him this week.
Yeah.
Christian Kirk is the other guy only really in that range that's, got somewhat of a ceiling that's similar to Cole's. So, yeah, I'm good with it.
Yeah, I would want Robinson to be healthy and in there because we talked about it in the chat too. Like Jacksonville just does not. I mean, last week they lost by 21, and I think they lost to Detroit by double digits, but they don't get blown out in every game. They somehow find ways to kind of stick into games that they have no business being in. And so if that's the kind of the case that we kind of see this week, I think he could really pop off for something nice there. Kev, what you got for us any further at wide receiver before we move on to tight ends?
No, I was going to make this quick. Like if you're going to pay up a wide receiver, like I love Tyreek at a bounce back spot against I shouldn't even say a bounce back spot, but and it's been a great spot. He is 8,800. It is tough to trust, but this dude has 40-point upside. So in stacks, I think I would like to play him, or as a one-off here at 8,800. I think he's worth his price at 8,800. But if I really quick, I just want to Allen Robinson, love him at 7,400. But I want to get down in the 6K range. Or actually, Michael Thomas. I don't know if people are going to want to play him. I know people are going to talk about Kansas City. They've been good against opposing wide receivers. I think Michael Thomas can actually fucking torch this defense. And at 7,200, especially if Drew Brees plays, I'm going to have a ton of Michael Thomas at 7,200. All right. So Robert Woods, I'm going to start off with him. Like I love him. Like whether it's in a stack or a one-off, Robert Woods over the last 4 weeks has out-targeted Cooper Kupp by 11 targets, 44-33. He is in my great matchup, obviously, against the Jets. So I love Robert Woods. They also use him kind of a little bit in a way of Deebo Samuel gets utilized as a runner as well. They'll give him some snaps at running back and stuff like that, do some jet sweeps and all that stuff. So at 6,800, I think Robert Woods is somebody that I'm going to have a ton of exposure to. Terry McLaurin. People aren't going to want to play him. He hasn't scored more than 5 fantasy points over the last 2 weeks. 6,600, way too cheap. He's typically a guy that's in that 7K range. Love Terry McLaurin in this matchup. I don't give a fuck who his quarterback is, to be honest with you. I really don't. I don't care if it's Dwayne Haskins. You can make an argument it's actually better for him to have Dwayne Haskins. Haskins always peppers Terry McLaurin. So, or if it's Alex Smith, I'm completely fine with. The Seattle defense allows the most points to the wide receiver position. They've actually allowed so much. The next closest wide receiver or the next closest group that allows to wide receivers, they are 200 yards ahead. They've allowed 200 more receiving yards than the next closest, which is the Falcons. They've just been terrible this year. And despite the drop-off over the last couple of weeks, he's still seeing 26% of the targets, which is ninth most among wide receivers, and accounts for 41% of their air yards. So love Terry McLaurin at that price tag. He can smash that price tag at 6,600. I think that's too cheap, but that's probably based off what he's done the last couple of weeks. 100% agree on Brandon Iuke. 100%. The dude has just, you could probably make an argument that he really should be 7K with what he has consistently put up points every single week.
Somebody said on Twitter, I don't remember who posted it, but
over his last 5 games, he's averaging 100 yards and 7 catches.
He's in the group with Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill over the last 5 games. And
so, I mean, look, 24.9, 20.5, 19.7, 23.1, 20.5. Like those are his last, like the dude has been as consistent as you can get. He gets Dallas this week. Give me all the Brandon Iuke at 6,300. If he's going to be chalk, you know how you beat that? You just go above him. You
push the lock button.
Yes. And just lock him in. So I'm definitely on that. I still like Chris Godwin at 6,200. I'm going to keep going back to that well. No, you're not going to talk me into playing Antonio Brown. We've had that conversation enough.
That's fine.
Not doing it.
You can come in second in tournaments. I'll come in first.
Well, it hasn't worked out for you I don't know,
It's going on week 3.
So
actually, week 4, I captained him in Showdown. The week he scored like 14 points. So this is actually week 4 in a row of me playing Antonio Brown.
Eventually, he might come through for you, but I wouldn't count on it. I definitely agree with getting off the T.Y. Hilton chalk, going to Michael Pittman at 4,800. I 100%. And then if I'm going to pay down at wide receiver, you guys already stole my guy, Christian Kirk. I was going to talk about him, but so there's no point in hammering that out. I will say if Drew Brees plays, I think Emmanuel Sanders becomes super interesting at $4,200 in that game. If Drew Brees plays, like this really could be the spot of the week where this game just goes absolutely nuclear, and you're talking about a 42 to 38 type game with these two offenses here. And again, I think I'll be interested to see what ownership comes out to be this week, because I think that this game could end up going overlooked because of how expensive the Chiefs are.
Everybody's expensive,
Yes. I mean, it's so expensive that everybody passes on it, and this could be the game that just breaks the entire slate because it has that type of upside in it with the Chiefs Saints, in the Superdome.
Right.
So Emmanuel Sanders is definitely a play. The other one I was going to talk is if you're wanting to play a 3K wide receiver, I still like Darnell Mooney at 3,900. He's playing a ton of snaps, 73% of the snaps last week. They didn't really have to throw the ball that much because they just pounded the Texans last week. He still ran 33 routes, which is pretty much what he's been doing every single week. If you look over the past 5 weeks, 11, 2, 9, 6, and 2 targets. So he did find the end zone last week. It was kind of fluky. It was a goal line opportunity. He found the end zone. But I do like Darnell Mooney at 3,900. I also think that this game could actually be a sneaky shootout as well, a game that could go overlooked, that has some opportunity to kind of go off a little bit. You guys have talked about Chicago over the last 4 weeks have allowed the 7th most passing yards over the last 4 weeks. So this pass defense can be had. If they can't get anything going with Dalvin Cook, they could look to open things up with Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, and then which would also push Mitchell Trubisky and then to have to really open up this offense and really throw it at a much quicker rate. So I do think that Darnell Mooney, if you're wanting to pay down at 3,900, I think deserves to be in the conversation with some of these other 3K wide receivers because of he's out there, he's running routes, he's doing everything you're kind of looking for. So
I'm good with that on this slate.
Yeah. I think that I do agree, Kev. I mean, like you're looking at the options there of Justin Jefferson and Thielen. I mean, Jefferson had 130 when these teams met in the first matchup. Thielen got the touchdowns there. Really didn't hit. But I mean, Irv Smith too, and we'll talk about this at tight end. Like tight ends have been getting lost on Chicago as well too. So like he's definitely in play. And if Minnesota starts putting up points, or the best way would be Chicago putting up points, forcing Minnesota to have to throw in that game for it to go nuclear, because Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson have been like in lineups going for 20 DK points or more pretty much all season. Last week they disappointed. Nobody's going to be on them. I like that.
If George Kittle plays this week, is he 100%? Do you just play 100% of George Kittle at 5,300?
Yeah, you have to, right?
It would be hard. Yeah.
I mean, the dude is a freak when it comes to injuries. Like, the dude is a freak. He's a robot. Like, he heals magically. It's insane. And, like, we've seen him hyperextend his knee and come back in, like, the second half and score 100, like, have 100 yards and a touchdown. It's like, if he's playing, I want.
Because I feel like if he's playing, he's 100%. He's ready to roll. Like, there's not going to be a limited thing or that. Because why would you even bring him back? Yeah. The 49ers really don't have a shot at the playoffs. Why would you really bring him back if he wasn't 100% ready to return?
Yeah,
it could be one of those things where he wants to kind of play too. Like, I mean, we've seen the San Francisco games. I don't know if you guys watched, but they show him like up in the booth, just like getting excited about the games, like coming down to the sidelines with the guys after the games. Like, he seemed like he's been itching to get back on the field. So he just seems like a prideful player like that, where he doesn't give a fuck, like whether they're in it or out, like just get me on the field.
And he's the only player, in my opinion, on this slate that has Travis Kelce's upside. His ceiling.
Tight end?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, Mark Andrews doesn't.
And you're getting it at almost a $3,000 discount.
Mark Andrews has to catch 2 touchdowns just to get to 20 points.
Right.
He doesn't. Mark Andrews never gets a high yardage.
I mean, George Kittle has 43.1 in his bag already this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, he would definitely be tough to fade. I mean, you're just thinking because what he would offer you at that price tag, you're talking about a 5,300 wide receiver. When guys want to play T.Y. Hilton chalk, it would just be crazy, the builds that you would be able to make with him there. I was going to say what would be crazy is that we get him paired with the Iowa boy as well too, CJ Beathard. Get the Iowa to Iowa connection going there.
I think they already named, but they already named Mullins the starter.
They already named Mullins? Okay. Yeah. Even if he's the starter, though, like, do we believe Mullins could finish that game?
He's going to have a short leach.
Oh, for sure. If he struggles at all, come on. Yep. Come sit down, bub.
Yeah. Come on, sit right down here. Right next to Raheem Mostert when he's not playing.
Before we fully move to tight end, how do you guys feel? Will in chat, my man, he claims it's AB week. How do you guys feel about that? I mean, he did call T.Y. Hilton in chat 2 weeks ago against Houston, and now he's planting his flag with AB. So
this man says bold take, bold call, and Maddie's been talking about this for fucking 17 weeks now. Okay, like eventually, if you call it every week. Okay, it loses its luster, okay? You can't just keep saying it and it finally happens. It's like, I told you it was gonna happen.
Hey, it's like Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Man, I played the man like 4 weeks in a row. He finally hit like twice in a row. Yep. The profile checks out. So
he just doesn't get the volume that really is going to allow him to smash.
He will this week.
But Kev, so like I don't want to get too far into this, but I will just say, like, Kev, please look at the numbers. Like, look at the production numbers. That I'm not talking about like snaps or anything like that. Just like what they are producing, like in the games that these guys are playing in. And like I know he's not getting the touchdowns, but like Godwin's only had one over the past 4 weeks.
No, so the problem is that they have a cap ceiling. All of them do. Like, I don't even really love playing Godwin either because like all of them are capped and they're ceiling.
It is tough because Evans and Gronk usually catch all the touchdowns. But my argument for AB is when he hits his ceiling, he's going to have a long touchdown that gets him there. So that's why, like, when they get in close to the goal line, I'm not expecting them to target AB. That's not really what I'm playing for him for in tournaments. I want him to get like 7 catches for 110 yards, and one of those catches is a 45-yard bomb.
But see, but that's just not the way that they've really been moving the ball. Like it's been dink and dunk down the
Brady's been taking shots, man. He's just been awful.
That's what I'm saying.
He's been awful. But hey, I don't need him to be awful except for, I just need him to be good one pass, really.
It's such a, I don't hate it. I get what you're saying.
And AB looks good. Like he's crisp.
I don't know if I go that far. He's out there. His body.
He looks good.
He's blood runs his body, but
off of the production that he is getting, like if he does find the end zone, I don't care how long of the touchdown it is. Like if he finds the end zone, he's going to reach 20 DK points.
Well, I don't know about that. He could go 4 for 40.
He's gotten 2 14-point games with no buddies.
Right, yeah. And if he had a touchdown, would barely put him at 20. But I'm just saying he just doesn't have much of a
20,
ceiling.
Kev. That's funny. But you don't need ceiling with a 5K guy, though. Really?
No, it could work out a little bit more because of where he's priced at. But I don't know. Like it just doesn't do anything for me.
Too is more specific. Maybe it was kind of a bad play last slate when there was a million good plays. But I think this slate is a little more limited in terms of high ceiling options. No, in hindsight,
I was shopping. I was at Target while you guys were having this conversation. Okay,
they had to escort you out of the building because of how mad
my
you were.
Family to try to help you to not make a bad play, and you did it anyway.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Hey, hold on, baby. Go ahead to the register. Daddy got to take care of something. Gail got to take care of something. Yeah. Oh man. Let's talk about tight end, guys, as we're getting into tight end and defense here. Wrap up for the guys. We appreciate you guys rocking with us. DJ Nation podcast here. Tight end, yeah. I mean, we got Kelsey at 8K. I mean, that's just crazy to say, but I mean, the dude's been effing good. I mean, he's wide receiver. Like, are you paying 8K for a wide receiver? That's what you have to ask yourself. Like, DeAndre Hopkins is 7,900. Kelsey's 8K. What he's been able to produce, it's been fantastic, but at this position, it does make it a little bit tough to swallow paying that price tag for him when you can get, Irv Smith cheap, some of these other guys that Cole Comet 3K, some of these other guys, if they hit a touchdown, hopefully they can get you there. Mark Andrews 5,500. I expect him to be very popular if these guys don't get off of the COVID list there for Lamar. People just wanting to pay that price tag for him. TJ Hawkinson, I think will definitely garner some ownership there too. I like getting to some Rob Gronkowski this week. I mean, if he's seeing some red zone targets there at 4,200, if I can even maybe a mini stack, if I can talk myself into like a Russell Gage and Gronk, depending on how my builds are shaping out, I do like getting some exposure to him. And then, Irv Smith for me, I mean, at 3,600, if we're not having Kyle Rudolph out there running against him. It is frustrating to see that Tyler Conklin was getting work just as much as Irv Smith last week. Like, what the fuck is that? But 3,600 for him. He's definitely explosive. Love that. And in that same game, you got Cole Komet, who the targets just have been off the page. And that tweet that I tweeted out, Kev, that you talked about, I quote tweeted, like, Mitchell has been beating the drum to get this guy involved in the offense for weeks. Even before he was benched, he was talking about we need to be running more plays for Cole Komet. Now he's out there commanding the team again, and we see 7 targets for Cole Komet in the past 2 games. So he's definitely hitting his stride there. It's frustrating that Jimmy Graham does have some red zone packages that they've been rolling out there because they have 7 fucking tight ends on the roster. And so Jimmy Graham still becomes relevant, but Cole Komet is hitting his stride, and I think he'll pay off there. And then, outside of that, I don't really have any interest in any of these other like cheap guys who are down here. I'll probably be in this mid-range here with guys like Hawkinson, I guess, at 5,200. I do have interest, but like Irv Smith and Dan Arnold. Dan Arnold at 3,500. I mean, yes, it's chasing the touchdowns, but if I'm playing Kyler teams, like I'm going to have exposure to Dan Arnold in the hopes that he catches a touchdown, or maybe it's a log touchdown that he can get. But 7 targets over the past 2 weeks, 10 targets when you factor in that week against New England there too, 20 and 10 DK points the past 2 weeks. You like having exposure to him if you're running Kyler teams. Cav, where you at?
I mean, I just went from 6 to midnight talking about Dan Arnold. Okay, anytime Dan Arnold talks, things start to get exciting in here.
Oh man, I think
I'm more sad about anything is that we weren't on it.
That
we weren't on the play.
Right, exactly. Very frustrating. He's popped off, and we have not had any.
There you go. I pop off every time. The thing with Kelsey is like he really is like an elite wide receiver. I mean, he's leading the league in receiving yards, right?
Right.
Eight of his games, he scored at least 20 fantasy points. So or 20 DK points, and it's like I get it because he's a tight end. So you're like, don't ever feel comfortable. Like, can I really pay $8K for a tight end? But he's a fucking wide receiver, and he's an elite wide receiver option at that. I mean, he has multiple games this year over 30. And so it's so tough to sit him or to not have exposure to this guy because he can every week he's just going to crush. And so that being said, if you're not playing him, if George Kittle's playing, I'm just gonna lock him into my lineups. And then TJ Hawkinson makes I really like him at 5,200. I'm gonna pay down. I'm gonna pay down for Cole Comet.
Yeah.
Honey, who you got? Because that's it. That's all I'm doing. That's what I'm doing.
Tight ends gross.
Yeah, I like Comet, definitely. He's got the second most targets behind Robinson over the last 2 weeks. 14 to Robinson's 20. Irv Smith, obviously, don't need to beat a dead horse here, but especially if Rudolph's out. We saw Irv come back from injury last week and played well. And now Chicago is actually one of the bottom of the barrel in terms of defending the tight end position. So that's a sneaky good matchup there for Irv, especially Kev. If you like that game as a whole, I would definitely. I try to anchor my games with a tight end included in my game stack because usually tight ends are involved in the touchdown scoring. So definitely like Irv as a one-off, and as definitely would include him as a game stack there. And Gronk. I mean, he's a threat to catch a touchdown every single week. So, if Kittle's in, I don't know how you just don't play him. If he's not in, Hawkinson's interesting, just because they don't really have anybody, and he's getting, he's in the 9 to 10 to 11 target range on a weekly basis. So, he's just a consistent 10 to 15 fantasy point producer. He's just, he's safe. Hasn't really flashed the ceiling. So, I'm on board with you paying less for Irv Smith and hoping he gets 10 and Hawkinson can keep pace with Hawkinson. But I think Hawkinson's interesting as well. But yeah, if Kittle's in, man, you just lock him in. And I agree on the Kelsey thing. 8K it feels really, really weird paying 8K for a tight end. But I mean, Kelsey really, he leads the NFL in receiving yards. He's got more yards than Metcalf. So you really are paying for a top end wide receiver with him. The issue with him is if he only gets you 15, you're kind of dead. So
yeah, but it's just like, we kind of touched on it a little bit, but this game environment though, it's like him or Hill is popping. Like, I just feel
right.
I just feel like even with Mahomes, like kind of disappointing over the past couple of weeks, not really hitting what we know to be what his stellar games are. I mean, Kelsey 30 points over the past 2 weeks. And then before that, like Hill is just taking dudes to the woodshed, like at will. I mean, these guys are just so the targets too are just so concentrated to these two guys. It's like, if Kelsey only gets 15, then what the fuck is Hill getting? Because like Hill is one of these guys is going to pop. It's just one of those things. Like nothing's 100%, but I feel like when we're making our rosters and we're betting on things to happen, like the probability levels there have to be somewhat high.
I think that makes a ton of sense. I mean, like, in what world do the Chiefs not finish in top 3 team total at the end of the week when it's all said and done, right? And so if they do that, it's a good chance one of or both Hill and Kelsey smash. Otherwise, you better play some Sammy Watkins at 4,600 because he's the next man to smash. So it's like, I don't know. I guess I'm saying it in a different way. How do you just outright fade the Chiefs? Like have zero Chiefs exposure, especially on a slate like this. I don't know that you can do that.
Yeah, it's tough to, and people won't be thinking about that. And I do agree with Kev as we get into defense here, not to take it a different step because we've already been there, but I do just agree that they will go overlooked, like because the guys are high priced and the cheap guy like Watkins. And how many times have we talked about Watkins like on this podcast, in the chat? I've talked about him in my article and in the video, like. If it's not those guys,
I played him every week he's been back. Every single week he's been back. I played him.
I mean, you have to.
He's my Antonio Brown,
and it's like and you have to.
He's 4,600, 4,200, whatever he's been in that range, and it's like, okay, so yeah, Kelsey's been hitting 30, but on the week, like Maddie's alluding to, like if he goes out there and gets 15 this week, and you're not playing Hill. Because he's 8,500, which, okay, maybe you find other pivots to not play Hill and Derrick Henry outscores them or whatever. Okay, so then you get Watkins because Watkins is getting 20, which is 5x of his salary.
Right. Yep.
And
correct,
if not more.
And in that roster construction scenario, you're basically saying there's no way the Chiefs score less than 25 points.
Right. And we know what
believable. Like
running backs are not gonna the running backs are not going to offer.
Will, thanks for paying the rake this week, bud.
No, I mean, yeah, and I get it. I mean, it has been working out to some extent. I mean, I guess last week it ended up working out for people. Like if you played Kelsey and Gesicki, like you were able to make that 2 tight end stack work. I saw the guy won the millie with that. And then week before that, yeah, Kelsey. But when we're just talking about the slate, like overall in general, like if you're making multi-lines and you're just saying across the board, like, I don't want to have any Chiefs. That's kind of scary. Like if Maddie, like you are, like you make 3 teams, like, okay, if you don't have a stack that's Saints and Chiefs, like you're just rooting for one thing. Your day is, I don't want this game to go over. And I just want the scoring to just be limited and I'll move on for my day. Like that's totally fine.
The crazy part to me,
150 rosters, like that's hard to do that on those teams.
The crazy part to me about this is like I don't really understand why it feels like, because it does feel like it's going to get overlooked. I think people have that because it is expensive. I get that, but in any other year, like this is like 100%. This is the chalk game. Let's try to figure out how to win. Maybe just get some pieces of this game, because like this is like what we call it the Coors of the NFL, and because it's in the Superdome. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me that I'm guessing maybe because people don't know what's going to happen with Taysom Hill. Is it going to be Drew Brees? Drew Brees come back from an injury. But, like, this is a game that's going to have Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Patrick fucking Mahomes, Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas. Like,
yep.
It's going to be high fucking scoring. The Chiefs very fucking rarely play in a game where it's 19-17. Like it's gonna be 35-28. It's gonna be like there's not many games that you can sit here and look at on the slate and say, yep, that game's gonna go over. Yep, that game's definitely going over. Like this is almost a lock for it to go over. All right. And so there's going to be a lot of points. So the only way that it doesn't get there is if Patrick Mahomes has one of those weird games where he throws a screen pass to Anthony Sherman and Deion Yelder catches one, and like all this other weird shit. Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Le'Veon Bell have receiving touchdowns. Like that's the only way that these guys that's not going to fucking smash, which is possible. It fucking happens. Patrick Mahomes spreads the ball out, but regardless of that, it is good. Like.
I love it.
This, like, it does really feel like that this game is going to be the one that you look back on and be like, damn, how the fuck did I not have more exposure to this fucking game? Because, like, this is the nut game of the week.
I'm laughing, Kev, just because, like, I've gone through this. Like, I've been doing this for the past couple of days. Like, I'll start building lines. So I'm like, wait, I'm really not having a Chief? Like, that's what got me to, like, looking at Taysom Hill lines. Because I was like, okay, like, yeah, Mahomes is 7,900. And I do like having him. Like I've built teams with him, practice teams. But like I was like, okay, what can I do with Taysom and maybe Kamara as the stack? As now we're getting Michael Thomas possibly missing, and that would be tilting. But if he does play, like just let me get all the Saints points there maybe, and then take a Hill or a Kelsey on that team and just say, okay, now I have that stack, and now let me do kind of mini stacks in other spots. Because this, like you said, this game just, you look at it and it's just like, how is this just not jumping off the page? And ironically, Kev, as I get to Maddie and we get into defense as we got this stat chart, this was a quarterback conversation. I know it was, but ironically, I think that if Drew Brees gets ruled in, it will then be less there will be less ownership on this because people will not be, they'll be afraid about Drew Brees coming back. There'll be conversations about he's coming back too early. Is he healthy? I'm scared to kind of touch this game. This is going to be weird. Drew Brees kind of disappointed in games before. He's not the same. Like so many narratives will go off of that it'll just be like, maybe then it becomes, okay, Chiefs will just run, maybe they'll take advantage of Brees and they'll be able to run away. And there's nobody that we can play on the Saints side because he doesn't have rushing upside, and maybe we get to Kamara a little bit, but I think that it'll go under-owned even more if Brees is in because there'll be more uncertainty around it.
I agree. And Kev, how many points did Kansas City score last week against Miami?
30.
And Mahomes threw what, 3 interceptions as they were driving that killed, they could have easily scored 45 points last week. Easily.
Oh, for sure. They missed one to Tyreek. It was a deep ball to Tyreek that they should have had. Like there was multiple opportunities here. And Will in the chat said Taysom Hill, Latavius Murray, and run clock. Sure, Will. That's what every team wants to do every week. Like there's never a team that's like, you know what? Let's just let Mahomes chuck it 40 times today. Okay. Like, but this offense is so it's a fucking Lamborghini, right? Like it can score.
It scores in 3 plays. If 3 plays,
21 points in a matter of minutes.
The Chiefs don't need to own the time of possession to score their 35 points. They literally can do it on 15 minutes of time of possession. It's stupid. So we've never seen anything like this.
Right. And it's one of those things where you kind of look at it and you're like, okay, like, yeah, Tyreek's priced at 8,800. That feels expensive, but like he fucking belongs there. Like Kelsey's priced at 8K. It feels expensive. He fucking belongs there.
Two weeks ago, Tyreek hit value at 8,800 in 1 quarter.
Right. It's fucking insane. And then Mahomes at 7,900. Like we've seen 8K quarterbacks on DraftKings. Like that's where he belongs. He's kind of like underpriced for what he offers you.
And Tyreek's been underpriced all year, like in the 7K range. I'm like, what is happening here with Tyreek Hill?
Right. No, 8,800 is where he belongs because of what he offers. Not to mention, I know there'll be not narratives, but I know people will be talking about road splits with Tyreek Hill as those always come into play too. So just even more enticing road and in the dome.
There's no fans this year though, so the road splits I don't even really care about those.
True.
Like Amari Cooper just smashed in Cincy. He doesn't do anything on the road. Actually, he's done well on the. If you look at his game logs, Amari Cooper has done well on the road all year because there's no fans.
Right. Man, it's going to be fun. Just even talking about the conversation builds are going to be fun. Let's talk about defense as we close it out. And this is what's going to make it even more fun is defense here. You got Rams, Ravens, Dolphins at the top there, 3,700 and above. Talked about the Dolphins. I mean, I just like the Dolphins this week. I usually try and pay down 2 for you, Maddie. And the pay down defense again this week will be the Cowboys at 2,700 at home against Nick Mullins. People will play them. It's chalky. You can do that, but I will. They did have a defensive touchdown last week, and they only got to 18 points. So if San Francisco is able to put up points and Dallas doesn't score, like sure they'll get like 8, 9. I think they could probably get to, but at 2,700, and they will be popular yet again because they were like 18% owned in some of the tournaments that I was in last week at their price, only a couple $100 more. Like people will just jam them in. Because they think it's a lock. I think trying to get to some of these 3K defenses make a lot of sense. I mean, the Bears make sense at 3,200 if you want to try and play them. Like that's the one thing that they can do well is play on defense. I think even who's I look even at I don't. It makes it tough because I've done this before. I did this with Rams 2,200 against the Seahawks. And I'm interested in Washington at 2,600 against the Seahawks. Like it feels kind of thin, but again, it's defense, and they've just been good, man. The front seven's been good. The Seahawks are traveling to the East Coast to play this team. This team is kind of fighting for things, and I know Dwayne Haskins might be on the other side. We don't know what the quarterback situation is there. But regardless, I think this defense will do its best to try and keep them in the game. They really have kind of limited production there. Chris Carson is yet again on the injury report. That's kind of where he just lives. He just sets up shop and ends up questionable every week. But if they're running out guys like Carlos Hyde and DJ Dallas to go into Washington, a team that you really haven't targeted running backs against, and it is just going to be on Russ, like Russ has not been matchup proof, so to speak. And if nobody wants to play Washington, they're $100 cheaper than Dallas. I will pivot there and take a shot there. And then the other team that I like, and Maddie, you probably won't have interest in this because you like Brady, but I like Falcons at 2,300. I mean, why not? And if they have just been better with Raheem Morris, a defensive-minded coach who's at the helm now and has really, try to get them involved. And, they're 2,300 and they've, had a couple fours there, but like, look at the 28 game that they had. Like if they are able to luck into something here on a defensive touchdown, and we've seen Brady turn the ball over before, they're going to be unowned at 2,300. Nobody's going to target them at all. So I love paying them for cheap on rosters where I need to. But yeah, for me, it starts pretty much at Miami and then I just work my way down from there. Kev, what are you doing at defense?
I mean, you pretty much nailed it. I don't hate the Jets at 2,100 if you had to pay down. I've been playing some Jets lately on defense because they're always like 2K.
Jets?
Outside of last week, 5, 9, 8. They get to the quarterback. They're able to, they get sacks. I don't fucking love it by any stretch of the imagination, but but if you have to pay down, I don't mind paying $2,100 for the Jets. Past that, I think the Cardinals against, Jalen Hurts, who's a rookie quarterback, make a mistake, throw an interception, pick six. I think the Cardinals are an okay spot at 2,900, but Patriots defense isn't crazy at 3K. Especially, with Tua back there, and then, if you can figure out a way, obviously Baltimore makes sense. I'm not paying $4,500 for the Rams. The Chiefs, if Drew Brees is out and it's Taysom Hill, I'll have a lot of $3,300 Kansas City. Because I do think that it's entirely possible that we see Jameis Winston in that game if Taysom Hill struggles again.
Wow, really?
Yeah, Taysom Hill has really the last 2 weeks. Taysom Hill has looked pretty well in the Denver game, and then last week against Philly. The Denver game he looked terrible as well, and then this last week he looks bad. If he looks bad again, if Drew Brees is out, I could see by halftime Jameis Winston starting.
There's no chance that Sean Payton benches Taysom Hill.
I disagree. Literally everybody in that organization wanted Jameis to start, and Peyton went with Taysom.
Right.
Supposedly, half the organization was pissed.
He calls the shots, though, right?
He does, but at what point, if you're down by 21 at halftime, at what point do you just say, okay, enough's enough, so let's go with our other guy? And how many times do we see teams finish a game with the backup quarterback and then not start him the next week? It was just an in-game switch just to, try to do something different. Because, if they are down by multiple scores, I think Winston does give them their best opportunity to chuck it around the field as opposed to what Taysom does. But
yeah, and I just maybe he'd get maybe he gets benched as far as not playing quarterback. He's still going to be on the field. I feel right. He would probably just throw in packages where maybe Jameis is throwing instead of Taysom. But I don't know, man. We've been talking about should Taysom be even garnering a roster spot here. I feel for a while, and Peyton has just found ways to get him involved in so many different aspects, whether it's catching or throwing or running. He just loves the guy. I don't think he can do any wrong at this point. And it's hard to justify benching a guy against the Chiefs. The Chiefs are the Super Bowl, defenders for last year. It's not a game that they should really win, right? But yeah, I get it, I guess, from a certain extent. But I just don't see Peyton benching him.
That's all I got at that defense.
Maddie, what say you?
Seahawks 3,100 against Haskins, most likely. Patriots, Bill Belichick against a rookie quarterback, 3K. and the Falcons. While I think, if Ronald Jones were to be out, which it sounds like there's a good possibility that happens, if my inkling tells me that they're just going to lean on Brady to throw more, which is something we obviously like for, stacking up wide receivers and whatnot, but that's also good for defenses scoring fantasy points as well. You get sacks, interceptions, pick sixes. A lot of good things happen when opposing offenses throw the football for defenses. So there's definitely more opportunities for the Falcons defense to score fantasy points if Tampa Bay goes pass heavy there, which they're already a pass heavy team anyway. So Falcons, I'm on board. If I was needing to punt, Falcons would be the punt, but obviously would prefer the 2-3K defenses over them.
Fair enough. All right. That's going to do that for the Week 15 main slate breakdown podcast. As we get in here, we'll do real quick. I'll pull up the huddle here, and we will get this build out to you guys. We had some pretty decent weeks, and I think the build did pretty well last week. But we need to get back into. We were running some heaters, boys. We were running some heaters very strong there in midseason. So we need to get back to midseason form and build a good team here. I'm loading up the 50K huddle, single entry, Draftkings, $5 entry there. Maddie, why don't you start it off this week? Where we started?
So I said there was two guys that I will not make a team without probably this week, and the first one is going to be Alvin Kamara.
Love it. Kev, you got it from here.
Pat Mahomes.
Kelsey tied in. That's $44.50 per position.
Gonna need some value, but I want to get another weapon attached to that game stack. So let's go with Sammy Watkins.
We'll see you, Kev.
Let's see how this looks. Let's go Jonathan Taylor.
Oh, my God.
Oh.
Kev. I'm playing Falcons D and giving it to Maddie. Have fun with this.
I mean, we can move off of Taylor if we don't have enough. I just want to see what this looks like if we pay up at running back and play this Chiefs stack.
Christian Kirk. We got 4150 left for wide receiver flex. See, this is exactly why Lynn Bowden's going to be chalk. This right here. Everybody's going to say, oh, let me get 3,600 in Lynn Bowden in, and now I got 4,700 left in flex, and I can play Leonard Fournette. That is exactly
right.
What's going to
or not. Yeah, I mean, it'll be Fournette, and then they'll take out like you got to think people aren't going to play Mahomes, but they will play Kelsey because they want to play Henry. So it'll be Henry, Fournette, Kelsey. Probably a more expensive defense than Falcons. And, people will probably play like Hurts. Again.
I agree. It's a tough build to stack up the Chiefs.
No, but it doesn't make sense. I was thinking about doing Hardman at 3,400.
The mega stack.
But I don't really know. I mean, that's 3 Chiefs pass catchers. And it's already sketchy enough with Watkins.
Crazier things have happened. That already hit once this year, too. Not with Watkins, but.
Right, that's, yeah.
Freaking Hardman, Robinson, Kelsey, Hill. They all got a pass.
What about Michael Gallup at 3,500? I mean, he easily could see 10 targets in this game.
He could also see 4.
Huh?
He could also see 4.
I don't know. I mean, he just hasn't been seeing that. Even last week he saw 6, but they were destroying the Bengals in that game.
What about are we all on the Dobbins train?
Okay, that's a way. So yeah, we could do that. Just drop down from Taylor to Dobbins.
Yeah, because you can go Dobbins, and then you can fill it out with Pittman and Russell Gage.
I was even gonna say go down to Edwards. Say fuck it. At 4,400.
Or Leonard Fournette. we're already different with Patrick Mahomes, and the Chiefs stack. At least compared to what everyone else is going to have.
I think a popular pairing is going to be Fournette and Derrick Henry. To be honest,
yeah. If you go a guy like Gus Edwards, like you could fit in Iuke, like in somebody. You could fit in Corey Davis.
But I was looking at I get an Iuke.
But if you go Fournette, you can still go Iuke and still have $4,700 left in the flex.
Which would be Gage, probably.
Yeah, I would like Gage there.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly on Gage. So, yeah, I mean, I'm fine with that. I like that.
All right. So that's so the team. I can't believe we landed on Fournette, even though none of us wanted to play him. Pat Mahomes, Alvin Kamara, Leonard Fournette, Sammy Watkins, Christian Kirk, Russell Gage, Travis Kelce, Brandon Ayuk, Falcons D is the team for this week. That's the Week 15 team. I am updating that right now, submitting that in. Leonard Fournette made it on the team. And that's going to do it for the Week 15 main slate breakdown. You guys got any final words before we sign off here?
No. Happy Antonio Brown week.
Oh, goodness.
No. Fuck that guy.
Hey, I don't disagree.
Enjoy these next 2 weeks because it's going to be great, right? So not just with Christmas, but we have football on Saturday, we have football on Sunday, Monday, and then next week, obviously Christmas. So I hope everybody has a great Christmas. Also, I guess we should mention too that's now I'm thinking about it. The show will not be obviously out on its normal day because of Christmas Eve and Christmas. We are going to be recording on Saturday, I believe, Saturday morning. Before this next week for the main slate show. So everyone's aware we will be recording on Saturday morning next week because of Christmas. But next weekend, we get football on Friday, on Saturday, on Sunday, and on Monday. Just a full fucking weekend of fucking football. Plus, we also get the NBA slate starting also this next week, plus the Christmas Day slate, which is always GOAT. So, it's going to be a lot of fun. There's a lot of DFS, a lot of DGen coming. So,
yeah. DraftKings already handing out free tickets for that Christmas millionaire.
Yeah, it's the gift that keeps on giving, right? Tis the season, Kev.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate that. And Will, I see your question there. If we're doing a Saturday breakdown, we will not do one from the pod show perspective, but I think we're going to try and do something on the YouTube channel just to kind of get some thoughts up there.
Next week's, yes. Next week's, that's why we're going on early. And we'll talk. We're just going to run through it a little, quickly for the 3-game slate. That's going to be on the because that way we need to have enough time because of course we were supposed to do an hour and a half today and we're to 2 hours again. But
under an hour and a half, we're going to go
brand.
Yeah, stay on brand. Hashtag. Too great. But yeah, guys, we appreciate you guys rocking with us all season. DJ Nation Podcast, where you can find us on Twitter, is at DJ Nation Pod. If you're watching with us, make sure you are subscribed there. You can see it there. To win that Allen Robinson signed jersey giveaway is happening on December 27th just by subscribing to the YouTube channel. We appreciate everybody that's been rocking with us and getting on there, subscribing to the channel, leaving comments on the videos. Much love to everybody. Thank you guys for listening to the show, downloading the show as well. If you're listening to this on your podcast softwares, we much appreciate that too. We will be back next week for Week 16. We got plenty of content, plenty of games, as Kevin alluded to get to for you guys. So don't miss out on that. Tune in to us. We'll make sure we tweet out the times on Twitter so you guys know when we're going live. And yeah, just good luck this week in week 15. Signing off for the boys, Mr. Matty D, Matty 2v2, Matty gets buckets at Matty DFS on Twitter, the Godfather himself, Santa Claus, Mr. Kevin Steele at Fantasy Rat 13, and myself, Ryan Williams, at Ryan Alexander _W is where you can find us on Twitter. It's the DJ Nation podcast. Merry Christmas, you filthy animals, and have a happy holiday and get that money. Peace.